Now, for anyone who's watching this course that is on Shopify, you have an additional trigger called Checkout Started. So there's basically three parts here. There's browse abandonment, which we've already covered. There's added to cart, which we've already covered. And then there's Checkout Started. So in terms of priority, Checkout Started is obviously the most important. Add to cart is next, and browse abandonment is next. So if you look at it in terms of funnel, you probably have about 10% of people browse abandon, let's say 7% add to cart, only 5% of the total end up starting the checkout, and then 2.5% end up purchasing. So it all funnels down. Now, Checkout Started is essentially what most people think of as abandoned cart, but it's important to note the difference. Abandoned cart really is you just click that add to cart button on the website and then you leave without beginning the checkout process. Now, if you begin the checkout process, we have more data, and so we're able to pass through an entire checkout as a link in the text message, as opposed to just driving you back to the product page. So that's when you can send a link that will drive somebody back to a checkout that's already pre-populated with 5 items versus sending them back to an individual product page. So that's one of the main differences. Now, the branch you're going to want to use for this is has made a purchase at least once since starting this journey. Because if they've already made a purchase, you don't want to send them an abandoned checkout text message. However, this one that we set up for this particular client is a little bit more complex in that we are sending people down 2 different paths depending on if they're a returning customer or a net new customer, which you can see by this branch here, which is has made a purchase at least once over all time. So if you have, you go down this bucket, and if you haven't, you go down here. Then we're testing waiting 30 minutes versus waiting 60 minutes for when you get the text message. So that's why the conditional logic comes down here of has made a purchase at least once since starting this journey. And then you can see here in the text itself, this checkout link. So that's what I was referencing when we can send people back to a fully populated checkout versus having to send them to a product page, like with the add to cart trigger that comes native with Attentive. So that's your abandoned checkout flow. There's a bunch of other ways that you could potentially test this. This is one of my favorites where you bucket it into new versus returning customers, and then you can do a time test as well to see if 30 minutes or 60 minutes performs best.